Okay, now Ralph, you turned your microphone on?
I have.
Oh, good stuff. You can come up here. Just put your hands together for Ralph VK3LL. You're talking about Bluetooth.
Thank you, Jack. Mr. President.
Testing. Good evening and welcome everyone. Just while while Jack is going to the camera to record me, I can't help but thinking that there's just a couple of things you forgot to mention, Jack, so with his permission I'll fill in, because there was another club station that took out a place in the VHF UHF field day. Would you please put your hands together and congratulate Damien for 4th place, and myself. 4th place in the 8-hour section, is that right? And I'm quite sure it was the 2 metre and 70 centimetre operator, that was me by the way, that really just drove those points home. So there are some fantastic talks. Are we recording now, Jack, or do you want me? Yep, we can. There's some fantastic talks coming up. Fantastic talks coming up. Looking forward to see many of those. But the great news is, have I blown a fuse? Did I talk to you later? But there is a great one on right now, and that's the talk that I'm going to give this evening, because I have given this talk a name. And I'm calling it From Vikings to VK. I'm very proud of this, as you will see in a few moments, because if you get it, both parts have V and K in them. There is actually a subtle meaning. Now, Carl's not here tonight, so I can bag him as much as I can, and I'm sure he won't watch amateur television, but I did say to Carl, back in, when was it, Jack? November or December, something like that. I said, look, I've got this idea in the back of my mind to make a Bluetooth adapter for amateur radio, and I reckon I can do it. And he goes, I suggested to him, look, I'll do a little mini 15-minute, 10-minute talk, just as a bit of a filler between some of your other more formal presentations. And he said, that's it, great, you're coming back, you're at the coffee shop meeting, and we picked the date. Now that was a bit silly of me, because I hadn't even built it, I hadn't even designed it, I had nothing. I just had a concept up here, so I went and worked relentlessly over the Christmas period, and I'm delighted to say I actually have, well, it was working 2 nights ago when I last tested it, I have a working prototype, which I'm going to show you in a moment. So that's why it's called a mini talk. It is a very short talk, but when I found out that I'm the keynote presentation tonight, I'm the only presentation, I've taken that little 10-minute talk and I've extended it out to about 3 or 4 hours. No, I think it'll probably go for about 12 minutes. So let's go through what we have in store for you in tonight's story. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of Bluetooth, and in fact I've got a lot of information on the history of Bluetooth. I've got pages of the stuff. That's how I'm going to get the extra 2 minutes into tonight. Going to talk a little bit about the underlying technology. I think everyone in the room probably knows a little bit about Bluetooth, but I'm going to just bring us all onto the same page there. I'm going to talk about a company from the US that's selling a new module that has hit the markets called the KC5012 from a company called KC Wirefree. Guess where they're located? KC? No, I have no idea. I thought it was Kansas City, but it's not. Got no idea. I've had a couple of dialogues with them, but I just can't remember where they are. I'm going to talk a little bit about different types of Bluetooth adapters and the headsets that you might use with them, and a practical demonstration including a schematic circuit, printed circuit board layout and concept for a design that will fit in a little box like this. Potentially could become another kit, and I'm hoping that the EMDRC will will enjoy the possibility of branding it with their name. So, let's talk about a guy whose name bears the product that we're talking about tonight. This is an artist's impression. They didn't have cameras back in 958 AD, so this is an artist's impression of King Harold with an A, Bluetooth. And I've made some notes here, and with your permission, I'll actually read these because I don't want to miss anything. Because without this information, we lose about 2 or 3 minutes out of this deeply meaningful presentation tonight. King Harold Bluetooth ruled Denmark between 958 and 985 AD. He was the... I'll stand over here so I get in range. He was the son of King Grom. Actually, King Grom the Old, his name was, and his wife Thyra Danebold, the daughter of King Ethelred of England. It gets better than this, believe me. Harold's grandson, Canute, went off to be the King of Denmark and England, and a mighty fine king he was, according to all reports. When still young, Harold developed the unusual passion to go a Viking in search of gold, treasure, and new lands for Viking settlements. Remember, he's widely reported to be the last Viking. Now you get the Viking sort of connection, don't you? And like his fellow Vikings, he considered it, honourable and worthwhile to plunder wherever and whenever he felt like it. Harold's sister Gunhild was married to a Norwegian king, and a marvellous name, this is a great name, of Eric Bloodaxe. But when Eric was killed, Harold decided to seize Norway for himself, making himself king of much of Scandinavia. Well, why wouldn't you do that? Then, for some unlikely reason, especially considering he was a bloodthirsty Viking, Harold decided one day to become a Christian, and had himself baptised by a German priest named Poppo. The names just get better and better through this little story, by the way. Harold then set about enthusiastically converting his subjects to Christianity as well. One report says he charged believers in the old gods twice as much tax as the new converts. I'm not sure whether that had something to do with it. So the Norse folk were quick to see the benefits of the new religion. Before too long, people stopped believing in Odin, Thor and Sigurd and the rest of the Norse gods. They were obviously too busy counting their newfound tax cuts. There's an idea for the Australian government. It seems that Harold's son, Siwan, Siwan Forkbeard, this great names here, was a bit of a wild boy, to say the least. So much that in 987 AD, Harold and Siwan went to war, and Harold was unfortunately killed in battle fighting his own son. Having killed his dad, Siwan carried on with his Viking ways, invading England in 1013 AD, and with no doubt the usual amount of burning, plundering, pillaging and unchristian-like behaviour. By the time his grandfatherless son Canute came to power, he was king of a massive kingdom. Now, I've got to tell you, I've got about that amount of information for every one of the 40 slides that we've... No, I haven't. No more slides have any notes to them, so it gets a little bit quicker from here. So, Bluetooth. Many of you have seen this logo before, the Bluetooth logo. It's actually comprised of 2 Nordic letters, H and B. Harold Bluetooth, that's where the name comes from. So that's the Viking connection. It's a little bit, I was actually quite impressed that I could come up with that Viking to VK sort of thing. It seemed to sort of work for me.
Can this be verified?
Maybe. Can it be verified? Maybe, and maybe not. So, Bluetooth, the protocol, the electronic connection to wireless devices, was invented by Ericsson. Well, who else would invent something like this and name it Bluetooth? In around 1984. Then a number of other companies hopped on. They formed a consortium. I think there was Sony, there was Nokia and a few other organisations all came together and decided that they needed to form a special interest group to manage the protocol and connectivity issues, etc. So that's how it is today, actually managed by a special interest group. And I've actually become a member of that special interest group, which I'm quite proud to say. Deep and technical that I am, I took out the free subscription, which just allows me to use that logo that you saw just a moment ago. That's about the extent of my membership. Of course, it is a wireless standard, and it was named Bluetooth because of King Bluetooth's ability to convert his subjects, loyal subjects as they were, to Christianity. He was able to bring many factions throughout the kingdoms that he ruled, and allowed them to collaborate and communicate more effectively together. Hence it seemed quite fitting to name this technology, this Bluetooth wireless technology, that gets a lot of different things to talk to each other exactly the same way. Give it the same name. So it's a technology for exchanging data over short distances. It runs in the 2.4 gig band, so from 2400 megs up to 2483.5 megahertz. It uses a technique known as FHSS, which Jim, I'm sure, will be very familiar with. Frequency hopping spread spectrum. Spread spectrum. It's easy for you to say. Bob?
Who developed spread spectrum technology?
That's a great question, and would you like to answer it?
It's a female.
It's a female.
Eddie Lamar.
Is it?
Eddie Lamar.
Ah, there you go. So there are 79 individual channels. Runs from 2402 megs up to 2480. There's a little bit of guard band on each side of that, and it jumps around to those multiple times per second, 1600 to be precise. So it jumps around very, very quickly between those particular defined channels. There are roughly 50 channels in each direction, transmit and receive, which happen simultaneously. Of course, it's all digital, so the audio that we pass through it, the replacement for an RS-232 serial connection, all is digitised and passed through over those frequencies. Most people know Bluetooth. You'll see made famous by Dr. Spock in, not Dr. Spock, Mr. Spock in Star Trek. Dr. Spock was someone else, wasn't it? He wrote a book, didn't he? Yes, okay, let's not go there. But little earpieces, and there's all sorts of Bluetooth. Just about everything has got Bluetooth in it these days. But I always wondered, why didn't ham radio have Bluetooth in it? Well, truth is, it does. There's a story about this which I told Damien before. This is one of the radios here, VX8, and I bought this in Anaheim when I was there with the family going to Disneyland, and I just said to my wife one morning, I'm just going to quickly whip out and go for a walk around the block. I'll be back shortly. And I jumped in a taxi and went down to Ham Radio Outlet, because they have one in Anaheim, and bought one of these, and it actually has the Bluetooth adapter built into it. So when I came back to Melbourne, I had this in my pocket one day, and I had an old pair of Bluetooth headphones on, and I went round to my brother-in-law's place. Oh, hang on, you've got to turn this off, you can't record this. And I went round and said, have you seen these new headphones from Dick Smith? They're the 2-metre headphones. And he goes, what? And I said, yeah, there's a repeater on it. And he put them on, and sure enough, he could key the repeater up. He goes, these are amazing. Little did he know that I had this in my pocket. So, yes, you can have all sorts of fun with Bluetooth, that's for sure. There are 3 different classes of Bluetooth, and this is actually quite interesting when I learned this. So class 2 is the most common one. So around about 2.5 milliwatts plus 4 dBm, gives you about 10 metres range typically between the 2 devices. Class 3, not so much. You won't see many Class 3 devices these days, but they do exist. I have a feeling that the one inside here is probably a Class 3 device because its range is very short. And Class 1 is the higher power unit, and you'll often see Class 1 devices in headsets that are used in corporate offices. I know we've got one at our receptionist at work can wear this headset and she can walk off all over the whole floor. It's got hundreds of metres of range, so they do actually exist. This is the device upon which the unit is made. There's been a few articles, you'll see them on the web if you ever look for amateur radio and Bluetooth. There's a few people out there that have taken the Jabra hands-free adapter, which is a device for headsets on telephones. They pull them apart, they adapt them, and you can get these things to work in a ham radio device. They're about $150 each, and they don't have PTT. That's the big disadvantage. You've got to use Vox with them, plus a bit of a hack to get them to work. So there has been a few articles around the use of Bluetooth in amateur radio. There was also a product that I found that's not made anymore, and there is in fact an article in QST around the middle of last year, written by a guy in the US, that is also doing something very similar to this technology, using one of these types of adapters. Now the nice thing about this particular adapter, and the reason I chose this one out of the many different types that were available, was two reasons. First one is, I wonder if you can see that, it's a Class 1 module, runs plus 18 dBm out, which is what, about 80 milliwatts or something? Can anyone convert that? Bob, you're a walking calculator. Pretty close to, yeah, thanks Peter, but around about 80 milliwatts out. Range typically exceeds 200 metres. That assumes that you're using a Class 1 device at the other end. So your headset has to be a Class 1 device. This is not. The one I'll show you tonight is a Class 2 device. So it's the range is typically limited by the class of the lower of the two classes, if that sort of makes sense. One of these works anywhere in my house, so it's probably got a range of about 15 to 20 metres, something like that. I reckon we'll get it to work tonight and I'll be able to walk down the back to Jack quite easily. And it has a preamp built in as well on the receive side, some programmable I/O pins, has an external antenna port, and of course uses the CSR is the people that actually make the firmware in the device. That's Cambridge something radio, UK company anyhow, very well known in the world of Bluetooth apparently. So it offers a number of different protocols. Look at this one down here, the hands-free protocol. We're not using that, we're using this one. The AG, the Audio Gateway to Hands-Free Protocol. All that means, I didn't have a clue what it meant, I'll be quite honest with you. All it means is it's a hands-free protocol for a mono headset. Ooh, that sounds interesting, with PTT. And that's the big difference with this particular device. It uses the connect and hang up button on your earpiece, on your headset, to actually provide the PTT switching functions. Big plus. So how does it work standard wise? Well, interestingly, it's a registered design with the Bluetooth Special Interest Group. It's qualified design, it's approved by the FCC, and it has a European CE rating approval as well. Now, how does it go in Australia? Peter MV is not here tonight, is he? And he doesn't pick up ATV either? Good. So here's the Lipid relevant section from the Lipid class license that I copied out, and you will see there that there is a section called frequency hopping transmitters. Maximum, oh look at this, the frequency, it's exactly what we're using. Isn't that great? And we're allowed up to 4 watts effective isotropic radiated power, and we're not running anywhere near that. As I said before, it's 80 milliwatts into a little bit of printed circuit board wire, so I kind of figure we're well under that. Minimum of 75 hopping frequencies, oh great. We're using 79, so we just make that as well. However, I am aware that there has to be a compliance statement issued before this device can be used legally in Australia. So someone has to declare that it conforms to those standards, and I haven't done that yet. So for that reason, we will be operating 80 milliwatts on 2.4 gigs around about the amateur band, I think, tonight. So we'll be using it in the amateur service this evening. But I don't see that as being a big issue. It's just a paperwork thing. So it uses around 2 milliamps when it's not actually connected, when it's just idle. Only a few microamps. I have to be honest, I haven't verified either of these settings yet. I only got my Crow back the other day with its built-in multimeter. Someone had, I'd loaned it to someone. But it's something like the matter of a few microamps. Runs off a little LiPo battery here, and this is a 2000 milliamp hour thing. I bought this in November. I charged it once, and I've been doing all these tests, and I've never charged it again. So it hasn't gone flat. Still reading like 4 volts or something. So plenty of charge. Speaking of which, it's got a 3.3 volt regulator built into the module as well. And the battery charger, as you all know, you've got to do the LiPo battery charging specially. The charger is even built in. You just plug in 5 volts from a USB adapter into the USB port on the side, and it charges it automatically. Very simple. And that same USB interface can also be used for firmware updates. Total harmonic distortion and noise, 0.04%. It's a pretty good hi-fi device, although we won't be really using it for hi-fi applications. Now you can't see this very clearly in the video. For those watching via amateur television, you'll see this very clearly right now because Jack will edit this in. But you can see that there's very little in terms of electronics. There's a module in the middle, a bit of filtering up here, and Peter, remember we talked about the idea of a preamp or an op-amp in there, because the balanced output wasn't necessary. Runs fine single-ended, so works perfectly. A little bit of filtering on the input as well. 4-pin connector up here goes to the radio, mic, speaker, PTT and ground. Interesting thing over here, I'm using a separate micro battery voltage monitor to prevent or detect brownout conditions when the battery gets right down to 2.5 volts. This will actually reset the microprocessor in here. Using one of these little poly fuses, a resettable fuse. I felt that was a very handy thing. Richard TXD taught me about those, so I put them in everything now. A bi-colour LED, I thought that was pretty cute. It's a red and blue LED built into one little package with 3 wires coming out. I found a source of those, and a transistor up the top there for operating the PTT. Now there's no volume control on it, is there? And that's because the volume is handled with these 2 little switches here. Volume down and volume up. 2 little miniature push buttons to set the volume. Once it's set, stored in firmware in the flash RAM I should say, and doesn't have to be adjusted again. Double click on them and it sets the mic volume. Single click on them, it'll set the speaker volume. So no potentiometers required. That's what the printed circuit board will look like. It's a concept at the moment. I have sat down and designed it, but haven't actually had any made yet. So a little dual-sided board, built-in printed 2.4 gig antenna up there, USB socket at one end, LED, push button. Here's the volume up and down buttons on the board. They're inside because you don't need to adjust them all the time. And 4-pin RJ11. Is that right? Is that a 4-pin RJ11 or 12 or something?
Yeah, RJ11.
RJ11. at the other end there. So this all fits into one of these little cases. And Damien has taught me always make a board that fits into a particular case, and the screw holes all sort of line up, so you don't have to worry about drilling things or anything like that. Well, I had this idea. I thought, okay, maybe we could take these little plastic end clips out, like this, and I could get some black printed circuit board made up as well. So I've also designed this little thing, which is 2 little strips of printed circuit board. I've given it a name. I'm calling it Speak Easy at the moment, because I thought that was a cute little name for it. And the cutout for the charging socket, the cutout for the RJ11 at the other end is already done. So you just pull those little plastic bits out, put these little pieces of printed circuit board in, pop the board inside, screw it together. I reckon it'll take about an hour to make. No drilling required. And those of you that know me will know that myself and drills don't necessarily go well together. Right, with that I'm now going to give you a practical demonstration of this in operation. Now I do have to say, and we're getting very close to the end of my presentation now, I do have to say anything can happen. All right? This is very clearly an experimental prototype. I don't know whether it's going to work, but we'll give it a try. So I'm going to put this microphone down. I think you can all hear me without it, yeah?
What's the bet that iPod pegs out?
So I'm going to use 146.5 megahertz this evening, and if you would, Peter, would you be kind enough to verify that that works? To switch it on, I just press the momentary button here. It goes into pairing mode. It's actually auto pairs to whatever headset it last used. I think it stores something like 5 pairs in it. There it goes. It's starting to scan and connect now. I'll also switch this radio on as well. I'm going to be operating into a dummy load this evening.
Who's the dummy?
No, it's scanning. It's got to pair up again. Hang on a sec. I told you that there could be. I'll do this the quick way. I'll start it again. The thing goes into a pairing mode for about, for just a few seconds when it comes on. There it goes. Are you getting a signal from me? There we go. All right. So I will now talk to you. Test 1, 2, 3, VK3 Lima Lima testing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll just walk down here and we'll see actually how far it really will work in this, don't you dare, how far it actually will work. Hello everyone on ATV. And that's all coming through okay? Yeah? And I'll get you just to speak back to me and I should hear you through here. Go ahead. Just walk around while he's speaking. It's a very difficult thing to demonstrate when you've got a headset, isn't it? Let's be honest. It's nothing for a massive audience.
Does this mean that you've got to have a radio that's capable of Bluetooth?
No.
Oh, that's good.
No. This little headset I bought on eBay, it was about, well, with freight about $30 or something, but you can use those little ones that stick into your ear. I got this one because John DQ said he got all excited. And this is one of the reasons I built this, because I saw John walking around his shack with a pair of headphones. And I said, well, what if someone calls you? How do you call back? He goes, oh, I run back to the radio and I pick it up and hopefully they're still there. Now, you can walk around the house, and if I can just find the button here. There it is. I can walk around the house now, and if I hear someone talking, I can speak back to them. Just as simple as that. So there's a little bit of noise on the signal at the moment. VK3 Lima Lima on frequency, by the way. We're into a dummy load here, so that's okay. you can walk around the house. It works quite effectively. The thing that there may be just a little bit of noise on it at the moment, just in the background, because it's in a prototyping sort of environment. What I really have to do is build that printed circuit board and separate the ground planes between the analog side and the digital side. You've got to get those sort of earthing areas on the PCB to separate those two. Otherwise, you get a little bit of digital noise. There we go. I'll put it over to you, Peter. VK3QI, VK3 Lima Lima. Go ahead. Yes, it is good, isn't it? There we go.
The blue light device.
Yeah, exactly. It is Bluetooth. Someone else asked me that earlier this evening. Yeah. For some reason, devices use blue flashing to indicate Bluetooth. So they will flash blue. They will flash blue and red under certain circumstances when they're pairing. You have to pair the headset to the device, and the way you do that is you just hold the button down for 4 seconds, I think it is, hold the button over there for 4 seconds, and they establish a communication between each other and they pair up. This particular headset can pair to 2 devices, so you can also pair it to a mobile phone, although I have to say I've never tried that. That's just one of the features of this particular one. And I think the Bluetooth standard itself on this one means you can use up to 5 headsets with it, although again, I've only read that somewhere. I've never tried any of that part. So yeah, blue and red is the typical 2 colours of Bluetooth.
Hey Rob, you get scared the hell out of the hoon on the freeway while you're pairing, you know, drive past
And see the red and blue flashing lights. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know whether you can actually see this. Red just means it's powering off. What I'll do. The board, the chip, yes, the chip is $40 or thereabouts, something like that. So I anticipate with the case, the printer circuit board, all the ancillary components, and a headset, I reckon, I have costed it absolutely perfectly, but I just can't remember the number. But I think it was $100, maybe $110, something like that. So that sort of figure. I'm actually eager to see how far this in fact goes. So I'm going to just put it on again if you'll permit me. And I'm just going to walk outside. Can you just tell me how far you can hear me? Yeah, no, I will come.
So we'll tell you how far you are when you can't hear it.
Yeah, that's right. Tell me how far away I am. Okay, so there we go. Keith, Peter. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm stepping out of the hall now. Goodbye. And I don't anticipate going too far, by the way, but we'll just see. And I'll walk down the stairs now. And I'm now down the stairs, and I'm going past Jack's car. Now there's a car here, ZKU 369. I'll just move past that car. And I'm now out in the car park, and I've lost it, have I? Yeah, I can hear it beeping here as well.
Just as you started reading out the number plate.
Oh, right, okay.
You're breaking up.
Yeah. Okay, so that should be back on again now.
Marvellous.
Has it reconnected?
Yeah.
Yep, it'll reconnect as soon as you come back in range again, so there we go. Sorry? Yeah, I get a little... Oh, hang on, I'll turn it off. I get a little beep beep in the earpiece to say you're out of range, so yeah. And then as soon as it comes back, it reconnects, so. Well, that is the demonstration. Thank you.
Those rough prices there on the one-off, probably weren't they?
I think I actually costed it on the basis of 10, but there wasn't a great deal of difference, really. All the parts, essentially, well, with a little bit of an exception, come from Ultronics, so we can take advantage of the club buying, which is really great. And there was about a $5 difference when you buy 10 of these things at once or 20 at once or something like that. Bob?
A couple of things on the interfacing side. Some radios have active high, some have active low EGT. Would you consider a link or something like that? Maybe.
Great question.
All right. So,
Thank you. Yeah.
because that's definitely an issue. Because I tried playing around with something like that a while ago. The other thing is.
So let's perhaps we'll talk offline and think how to do that. You could probably use a PNP transistor as well as an NPN.
Yeah, link it on.
And maybe just put it in a different way and just link it so that the emitter goes to ground, or the other one, the collector, goes to ground or something. Yeah.
The other one was also about the interfacing of the radio. Where do you have standard 600 ohm, or do you have something else? Some other
Yeah, it's a very good question. To be honest, you can match to just about anything. But if you have a look here, I put a 560 ohm resistor there just because I thought most radios are something around the 600 ohm mark. You've got an enormous amount of latitude with the up and down buttons, so you can get something like, I think it's about 30 dB worth of range in either of them. In terms of the input here, 6K8, that's coming in from the speaker sort of thing, so it doesn't load it very much. But I love the idea of switching. Susan?
Actually, a similar question in terms of the different radios using different pins on that RJ11. I think something like the signalling.
Yeah.
The speed thing when you got them in terms of jumpers.
Great question, and that's exactly how it works. Oh, no, it doesn't. This is not the finished printed circuit board, sorry. No, I've got another one, I just put the wrong picture here. If you've ever looked at the hands-free kit that I did with the club, it has a header that drops in. Well, what I did here was I put 2 sets of holes down here, 4 that go up to this connector here, and 4 that go to the rest of the electronics, and you just strap them across. So you can basically configure these 4 pins here to be any 4 pins in the designation. And I was thinking there are some radios, I think there's some Yaesu versions that actually use the 4-pin connector, or if they use an 8-pin, you can put a 4-pin in the middle, it'll work. So I was thinking of making that as a default. If you happen to lucky enough to have that radio, it'll just go 4-pin to 4-pin. Otherwise, you've got to make a cable up to go from there to your transceiver. And as you can see, it works fine with handhelds that use switching on the PTT, or PTT switching on the mic or speaker or something. Yeah.
A little challenge for you on Bluetooth headset.
All right. So you want to pair that one? Shall we do it? Is it charged up?
Yeah, it's ready to go.
Okay. Do you want to pair it? Put it into pairing mode for me. So what I'll do is I'll turn this off.
Just have to read the instructions.
Okay, so that one's off. The way you pair and clear the existing pairing is you press those 2 buttons together and hold them for 4 seconds. There we go, so it's now. Now you've got to put that on. I can tell you how to do it.
2-second press to turn on, 4-second press to turn off, activating pairing mode. Setup. Press until the red-blue light flashes.
It's usually about 4 or 5 seconds or something like that.
There you go. Hang on.
And it should go like that. So is it?
Until it flashes, it says.
Keep it down, and then it'll just go blue, red, blue, red. We might experiment with that offline. So, are there any other questions at all, or?
The USB socket, that's a micro one?
Yeah. At the moment it is. It's the really, really little one, because that's the one I've got on my cordless, on my mobile phone, wherever it is. But the one that I've chosen for the board is actually the normal little one. Well, I'll tell you why. I'll explain why. Have you ever tried to solder one of these by hand? Impossible. You cannot do it. They are way too small, and I've got 20 of them at home to prove that you can't do it with a hand soldering iron. The next size up, so it's using it's a mini, not a micro. Yeah, that's it. The surface mount versions of those are solderable, and I've got 20 of those to prove that you can.
Turn it off again.
Anything else? Any other? Yes,
What
Susan.
did you use to design the antenna on the bonnet?
Ah, excellent question. How did I design the antenna? I copied it off the, well, actually the application note came with the PCB artwork in Eagle format, which is the PCB program that I use. They supply it in their developer's kit, and I just had to cut and paste, literally, and there it was. So, because I would never have been smart enough to work that out. That's an earth on that side over there. That's the active pin there. And all they said is you've got to make sure that from that pin to that pin is less than 3 millimetres or something like that. And it satisfies that. And they also gave you the dimensions and said don't put any ground planes or any other tracks within a few millimetres of this. So obviously you can't put it in a die-cast box. Has to go in a metal box. First thing, otherwise you may find that the range is significantly reduced. And the other thing that I discovered with these radios, those of you that have the Baofeng, or maybe someone will be taking one home tonight, I've got to tell you, these are great radios. I love these radios. These are my son's, and they're in army colours because Jim, he just joined the army, so we thought that it would be best for him to have the camouflage colour ones. So these are full of RF coming out of the socket here. They must not bypass that thing at all. And in my early experiments with this, it was absolutely diabolical. There was so much RF coming down here, and that's where I discovered these little clip-on ferrite suppressors. That solved all of that problem. So
How complex is the soldering?
there's only 2 surface mount devices. That's the socket over here, which is solderable, okay, and this little device over here. That's it.
Large chip.
Oh yeah, quite easy.
Is it?
Yeah, they're 0.1 of a millimetre spacing. I'm only kidding. Have a look at it over here if you like. It's look, it's a little bit challenging. They're not 0.1 of an inch, you know, the normal IC spacing. I guess they're probably 0.6, I don't know, 0.065 or something, I guess, inches. Bob?
With that antenna, you've got ground at one end, you've got
Yep.
the tap feed in, shunt feed.
Yep.
What's at the far end, is it open? Or
It's an open circuit at the other end, yeah. Yep.
So it's probably a shunt feed 3/4 wavelength.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
We thought it was good that you put Richard Branson's photo on the top, open and slide.
Richard Branson's King Bluetooth photo, do you mean? He does look like a bit that, yeah. All right, if there's no further questions, thank you very much. I'll hand back to Jack, and we'll try the Bluetooth in a few seconds. Yeah, I'm sure we can get it to work. Just tell me if you can hear anything. What I'll do, these are very handy. I'm just going to put that on FM radio. Tell me if you can hear the radio coming through. Nothing? Okay, so that's all right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press that. I'm going to hold it down. Can't remember how long you hold it for. Okay, so can you put it back in pairing mode again for me?
Where's the pairing? Is that something new?
No. Bluetooth pairing is what they call it in phone technology, in phone world.
In the model area, we do the same thing.
It's in pairing now. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to power it off. So I just hold that for 3 seconds. Red indicates that it's going off. I'm going to switch it again, and now I can just press it briefly. That is now going, and it's flashing fast. It's going to connect. Just make sure this one's off. Well, this is how you do it. That's how you would do it. If tell you what, I'll get you to turn yours off, and I will. I'll try reconnecting this one again. No, so I'll switch it is off. Okay, so I'm going to just put this one on. And there it goes. You tell me when you hear something there. Is it running? Oh, we're transmitting. That's one of the things I've got to get them to change in the firmware. When it boots up for the first time, it boots up with the PTT on. So I need to. I need them to change that. Okay, so I reset it off, switch it back on again by holding it down, and what it does is it pairs with the last device that it paired to last time. It looks for that firstly. If it can't find that, then it goes through its list of previously paired devices and looks out to try and find them. Then if it can't find anything, then it just goes into pairing mode and just tries to find something. Oh, I'm transmitting on the air again. Let me just turn off. Okay. That should be working now. If I turn this on. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. A bit of feedback, of course.